It has been another week of political drama in America as a longtime Donald Trump associate, Rudy Giuliani, was hit with an eye-watering £116 million fine after he was judged to have defamed two poll workers by claiming they tampered with votes in 2020. Upon leaving court, Giuliani said, and I quote, "I don't regret a damn thing." Meanwhile, President Biden risks splitting his own party over plans to toughen border controls in exchange for Republican support for more military aid to Ukraine. Wow, a lot to unpick there. So here to take us through this is US political analyst Eric Haim. Eric, thank you very much for joining us this afternoon. So this is one hell of a fine that Giuliani is facing, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. In fact, this is actually more money than the two plaintiffs themselves were actually even requesting. No one actually saw this number coming. And of course, we know that Rudy Giuliani will certainly appeal this. And now it will be up to the appellate court to actually determine if this hefty fine will actually stand.
Why do we think the fine is so much? I mean, it sounds ridiculous money.
Well, there is the money that the two plaintiffs actually lost, and in terms of what they had to go through for having had to move out of their own home because of threats and because they were dogged by Giuliani and former President Donald Trump. But also the punitive damages which the jury actually awarded. That is what made the fine so astronomical. And again, it's unclear. First of all, if Giuliani can actually pay this. We know that he has been struggling to pay his own legal fees, and we know that he's even put up several of his properties for sale as a way to try to raise money. In addition to that, we know that there's still the criminal case that he is facing in Georgia. So it's unclear if these two plaintiffs will actually see any of this money that they were recently awarded.
I say he's not having a good time of it legally at the moment, is he? I mean, that was a civil case, wasn't it, as far as I understand it?
Yeah, that's right. That was a civil case. He is also facing the criminal trial in Georgia for attempting to try to thwart the election there in 2020. And even after some of the comments that he made recently, the judge in this civil case actually said that there was cause for additional potential suits by these two plaintiffs against the former mayor of New York. It's unclear if they're going to actually continue this case, but this was a major fine. And also, too, I think it speaks to where we are now seeing both jurors and potential voters, where they are going as it relates to 2020 and their willingness to actually come down very hard on individuals for such attacks on election workers.
I just have to ask you, I mean, the court system in America does seem a lot more politicised than in the United Kingdom. How much do you think politics has to play in this particular case?
Well, in this particular case, we have to remember it was the jurors themselves who actually came up with this number. The role of the actual judge is just to ensure that the process runs correctly and that there are no legal missteps by both sides. But it was the actual jurors who actually heard the evidence, heard directly from the plaintiffs in this case, who, of course, we know testified before the January 6th committee as well, who then actually had to met out punishment for Giuliani in this case. And we have to remember, Giuliani himself did not take the stand, even though he did make clear that he was going to. But of course, we saw that he did not. And I think the thinking by Giuliani has always been that he is simply not going to pay this simply because he doesn't have the means or the access to be able to do so.
As I say, it's a lot of money. And talking of our politics, what's Joe Biden been up to this week then?
Well, Joe Biden has been actually focusing on a number of vexing issues, first and foremost being the border in the United States with Mexico. In addition to that, of course, we know the president has been trying to get over the finish line aid packages to both Ukraine and Israel, which has been very difficult to do. of course, the holdup for that has been Republicans have been calling for more resources and support to the U.S. southern border. And so that's what we're seeing the president trying to address and trying to get done so urgently right now.
How big a problem? I mean, migration seems to be the buzzword of today's show, Eric. I mean, how big a issue is migration for the American electorate?
Well, it's a massive issue, particularly for the Republican Party, and has been for quite some time. And also, as we now see record inflows of migration to the U.S. southern border, this has continued to be a problem, and we're seeing it play out in many cities across the United States, where you're now seeing the state of Texas begin to actually move many of these migrants into northern liberal, or what we call blue cities in the United States. In addition to that, the governor of Arizona, another border state, is also now moving National Guardsmen to the border to ensure that there are not massive inflows coming in that way. So this is becoming a crisis right now. And that's why President Biden actually added additional funding for the border into this emergency aid package.
Interesting. Migration is a problem for all of us, isn't it? That is Eric Ham. Thank you very much for joining us with the update on American politics.